Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be the guy posting on here, but I don't know where else to turn. I'm absolutely wrecked right now, and I need advice or maybe just a place to vent. My name's Tyler, 36M, and my wife, Emily, 34F, and I have been married for 8 years. We have 2 kids, Ethan, who's 6, and Lily, who's 4. I thought we had a happy life together. I thought we were solid. But a single text turned my entire world upside down. This all started a couple of weeks ago on what seemed like an ordinary Friday evening. I was at home with the kids while Emily was out running errands. She said she needed to pick up a few things for the house and that she might grab a coffee with one of her friends while she was out. That wasn't unusual. She's always been close with her friends, and I encouraged her to take time for herself. After all, I thought we had nothing to hide from each other. I was sitting on the couch, half watching cartoons with Ethan and Lily, when my phone buzzed. I assumed it was a notification for work or one of the usual family group chats. But when I glanced at the screen, I saw Emily's name. That wasn't weird. She sometimes texted me while she was out to check in or see if I needed anything. I opened the message without a second thought. That's when everything changed. The message read, "I can't stop thinking about last night. You make me feel alive in a way Tyler never has. Can't wait to see you again." For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. My stomach dropped, and my hands started shaking as I reread the text. There was no way this was meant for me. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Who was she talking about? What did she mean by last night? I felt sick. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at my phone, trying to calm myself down. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But as much as I wanted to believe that, I couldn't ignore the knot in my stomach or the tone of her message. It was intimate, something she'd never say to me, and it felt like a betrayal. I decided to play it cool. I texted her back. "What do you mean?" She didn't respond for a couple of minutes, and I could imagine her face when she realized what she'd done. Then, the 3 dots appeared, and my heart raced as I waited for her reply. Her response was frantic. "Oh my God, Tyler, that wasn't meant for you. I'm so sorry. It's not what you think. I can explain everything. Not what I think. What else could it possibly be?" I didn't reply. I couldn't. I was too angry, too hurt, and too confused to even think about what to say. Instead, I told the kids I needed a minute and stepped outside. I paced back and forth on the porch, my mind spinning. When Emily came home later that evening, she looked panicked. She barely even said hello to the kids before pulling me aside. "Tyler, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. I could tell she'd been crying. "It's not what you think. I made a huge mistake." I folded my arms and leaned against the counter, trying to stay calm. "Then tell me what it is, Emily," I said, because that text didn't look like a mistake. She started crying again, covering her face with her hands. "It was stupid," she said. "It didn't mean anything. It was just a few texts, nothing physical, I swear." I stared at her, my chest tightening. "Who is he?" I asked. Emily hesitated, wiping her tears. "It's no one," she said. "Just someone I met online. It wasn't serious, Tyler. I was bored, and I made a stupid decision. That's all." Her words didn't bring me any comfort. If anything, they made me feel worse. She'd admitted to emotionally cheating, even if she claimed it wasn't physical. But how could I trust her now? How could I believe that this was the whole truth? I didn't know what to say, so I just walked away. "I need some time to think," I said, heading upstairs. I could hear her sobbing as I closed the bedroom door behind me. That was 2 weeks ago, and I'm still trying to process everything. Emily has been doing everything she can to make it up to me, apologizing constantly, deleting her social media accounts, and even suggesting we go to couples therapy. But I can't shake the feeling that there's more to the story. What if it wasn't just texts? What if she's still hiding something? I haven't told anyone about this yet, not my friends, not my family. I don't even know if I want to. I keep thinking about our kids and the life we've built together. Do I throw it all away because of one stupid decision? Or is this the beginning of the end for us? Hey Reddit, I'm back with an update, and it's been one hell of a couple of weeks since I last posted. After finding that text and confronting Emily, things have been tense, to say the least. I've been walking around in a fog, trying to figure out how to handle this, while Emily has been doing everything in her power to convince me that it was just a mistake, and that nothing physical ever happened. But the more I think about it, the less I believe her. The day after the text incident, Emily sat me down and tried to explain everything again. She said she met this guy, Mark, in a random online group about fitness. According to her, They started chatting casually about workouts and healthy eating, and over time, the conversations got more personal. She claimed it started as just harmless flirting, but admitted it crossed the line when she started sharing things about our relationship. "He made me feel heard," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I wasn't thinking about what it would do to us. I don't know. It felt nice to talk to someone who listened." I stared at her, completely numb. "Did you ever meet him in person?" I asked, bracing myself for the answer. "No," she said quickly. "Never. I swear, Tyler. It was just texts and a couple of phone calls. That's it. I know that doesn't make it okay, but I need you to believe me." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly. But something about her tone didn't sit right with me. She sounded rehearsed, like she'd gone over this explanation in her head 100 times before sitting down to tell me. And if there's one thing I've learned in my life, it's that when someone tries too hard to convince you of something, they're probably hiding something. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words in my head, trying to make sense of them. Was she telling the truth? Or was she downplaying what really happened? Around 2 a.m., I got up, grabbed her phone from the nightstand, and went downstairs to look through it. She'd deleted everything. Every text, every call log, every trace of her conversations with Mark was gone. My heart sank. If she had nothing to hide, why would she go out of her way to erase everything? I put the phone down and sat on the couch, feeling like a fool. How could I ever trust her again if she wasn't even willing to be transparent? The next morning, I confronted her about it. "Why did you delete everything?" I asked as we sat at the kitchen table. "If it was just texts, why not show me?" Emily looked panicked, her face turning pale. "I didn't want to hurt you more," she said. "I thought if I got rid of it all, we could start fresh. I didn't think you'd want to see it." "That's not your decision to make," I said, my voice shaking. "You took away my chance to decide for myself what I can handle. Now I don't know what to believe." She started crying again, apologizing over and over, but it didn't feel genuine. It felt like she was trying to manipulate me into forgiving her without giving me the full truth. I couldn't deal with it, so I grabbed my keys and left the house. I needed space to think. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind racing with questions. Who is Mark? How deep did this emotional affair go? And why does Emily seem more focused on damage control than on being honest with me? I wanted answers, but I didn't know how to get them. Later that day, I called my best friend Jake. I hadn't told anyone about what was going on, but I needed to talk to someone. Jake's the kind of guy who always gives it to you straight, even if it's not what you want to hear. "Man, this is bad," Jake said after I told him everything. "If she's deleting stuff and giving you half-truths, she's hiding something. You need to figure out exactly what's going on before you can decide what to do." "How?" I asked, frustrated. "She's not going to tell me the whole truth. And I don't want to hire a private investigator or some crazy crap like that." "You don't have to go full detective mode," Jake said. "But if she's hiding something, it's probably because she's scared you'll find out the whole story. You just have to be smart about how you handle it." That conversation stuck with me. Jake was right. I couldn't make any decisions until I knew the full truth. But how was I supposed to get it? Emily had already erased the evidence, and asking her again would just lead to more tears and excuses. I felt trapped. That night, Emily tried to act normal. She made dinner, played with the kids, and even suggested we watch a movie together after they went to bed. I agreed, but my heart wasn't in it. All I could think about was Mark and the text that started all of this. Who was he? Did he know she was married? Did he care? Or was he just some guy taking advantage of a crack in our relationship? I don't have the answers yet, Reddit. But one thing's for sure. I'm not letting this go until I get the full story. I owe it to myself, and I owe it to my kids. Emily keeps saying she wants to fix this, but if she really means it, she'll have to prove it with more than just words. Hey Reddit, I'm back again with an update. Since I last posted, I've been wrestling with the decision to confront Emily further or dig into the truth myself. I felt like I was stuck in a fog, questioning everything about our marriage. I needed answers, real answers, not the sanitized version Emily was trying to sell me. So, I decided to take matters into my own hands. First, I started small. I looked through our shared cell phone account to check call logs and texts. Sure enough, there were plenty of calls and messages between Emily and this Mark over the past few months. The timestamps matched up with the nights she said she was out with friends or working late. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks until after I found the text. That realization stung more than I expected. It felt like she didn't care enough to hide it, at least until she got caught. But the number itself was unfamiliar, and a reverse lookup didn't give me much to work with. I considered calling it, but I didn't want to tip him off. I needed a better way to figure out who this guy really was. That's when I remembered Emily's laptop. She rarely uses it, but she keeps it in our home office. I knew it was a long shot, but I hoped there might be some clue on there, maybe an email or a social media account she hadn't cleaned up yet. When Emily went out to run errands, I took my chance and logged in. She'd never bothered to change the password, which felt almost laughable given the circumstances. At first, I didn't find much. Her email was clean. No messages from Mark, no suspicious exchanges. It looked like she'd scrubbed it completely. But when I checked her browser history, I hit the jackpot. She'd logged into a WhatsApp web session recently, and it was still active. My hands shook as I opened it, and there it was, a full thread of messages between her and Mark. The texts were devastating. They weren't just flirty, they were intimate. She told him about her day, complained about our marriage, and shared details about her feelings that she hadn't even shared with me. He called her babe and beautiful, and she responded with heart emojis and things like, "I wish we had more time together." But the worst part? There were photos. Selfies she'd taken and sent to him, some of them just smiling, but others were more suggestive. Nothing fully explicit, but enough to make my stomach turn. There was no way she could claim this was innocent or meaningless. I took screenshots of everything. If Emily was going to deny the truth again, I wanted undeniable proof. By the time she got home, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. I was furious, heartbroken, and sick to my stomach all at once. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to calm down and figure out how to approach this without completely losing it. The next evening, I finally decided to confront Emily. I waited until the kids were asleep because I didn't want them to hear us fighting. She was in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner when I walked in and set my phone on the counter. "We need to talk," I said. Emily looked up at me, her face tense. "What is it?" "I found the messages," I said bluntly. "On your WhatsApp?" "All of them." Her face went pale, and she froze. For a moment, she didn't say anything, like she was processing the fact that she'd been caught. "Tyler," she started, her voice trembling, "I can explain." "Don't," I said, cutting her off. "Don't try to explain. I've seen enough. The texts, the photos, all of it. You lied to me, over and over again, and now you want to explain? What else is there to say?" She burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I don't know what I was thinking." "Who is he?" I demanded. "I want to know everything. How did this start, and how long has it been going on?" Emily hesitated, wiping her tears. "He's just someone I met online," she said. "We started talking a few months ago, and it got out of hand. But I swear, Tyler, I never met him in person. It was only ever texts." "How am I supposed to believe that?" I asked. "You've lied about everything else. Why should I believe you now?" "I'll prove it," she said desperately. "I'll show you everything, my messages, my accounts, whatever you need. I'll even block him right now. Please, Tyler, I'll do anything." I stared at her, trying to decide if I believed her. Part of me wanted to take her at her word, but another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that there was more she wasn't telling me. "You didn't even have the decency to end it until I caught you," I said. "Do you even understand what you've done to me? To us?" Emily nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know I've hurt you," she said. "I hate myself for it. But I love you, Tyler. I want to fix this. Please, just give me a chance." I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what I wanted anymore. I felt like my entire marriage had been built on a lie, and I wasn't sure if it was worth saving. "I need time," I said finally. "I need to figure out if this is something I can even try to get past." Emily nodded, her face crumpling as she started crying again. "Take all the time you need," she said. "I'll do whatever it takes." I walked out of the kitchen and went to the guest room, leaving her alone. As I lay there in the dark, I couldn't stop thinking about the messages, the photos, and everything Emily had told me. Could I ever forgive her? Could I ever trust her again? I didn't know. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same. After our confrontation in the kitchen, the house felt like a war zone. Not because we were yelling or fighting. We weren't even talking. The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. I stayed in the guest room that night and every night after. Emily tried a few times to approach me, but I wasn't ready to hear more apologies or excuses. I needed time to process everything. The following day, she left a note on the guest room door. "Tyler, I know I've hurt you more than I can ever make up for, but I want to be completely honest with you. If you want me to go through the messages together, I will. I'll answer any question you have. Just tell me when you're ready. I stared at the note for a long time. Part of me appreciated the gesture, her willingness to lay everything out, but another part of me felt like it was too little, too late. I already had the screenshots. I already knew enough to feel like my entire marriage had been a lie. What more could she say that would make a difference? Still, I couldn't sit in limbo forever. That evening, I finally called her into the living room. She sat on the couch, nervously twisting her hands, while I sat across from her, phone in hand. Let's go through the messages, I said. Together. And I want you to tell me the truth about every single one. Emily nodded, her face pale. Okay, she said softly. I'll tell you everything. We started from the beginning, scrolling through the messages she'd exchanged with Mark. At first, the texts were casual, talking about fitness routines, trading tips about workouts, and sharing playlists for the gym. But it didn't take long for the tone to shift. Soon, they were joking about personal things, complimenting each other, and then, eventually, flirting. I don't get it, I said, staring at one of the early messages where Mark had called her beautiful. Why didn't you shut this down the second it crossed the line? Emily looked down at her hands, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't know, she said. It felt harmless at first. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal, I said, my voice rising. You were texting another man behind my back. You were letting him say things to you that you should have shut down immediately. How is that not a big deal? She started crying, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. I know, she said. I know I should have stopped it. But I was lonely, Tyler. You've been so busy with work, and I felt invisible. Her words stung. I hated the idea that I'd somehow contributed to this, even if her actions were entirely her responsibility. So, what? I asked. You felt invisible, and instead of talking to me about it, you ran to some guy you met online? It wasn't like that, she said quickly. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just got out of control. I shook my head, scrolling to one of the more recent messages. It was a photo she'd sent to Mark, a selfie in a dress I'd never seen before. What about this? I asked, holding up the screen. What was this? What were you trying to do here? Emily's face crumpled, and she buried her face in her hands. I don't know, she said through her tears. I was being stupid. I wanted attention. I wanted to feel wanted. I wasn't thinking about how much it would hurt you. I didn't know what to say. Every answer she gave just made me feel worse. It wasn't enough for her to say she was sorry. She destroyed my trust, and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to get it back. Did you ever meet him in person? I asked, my voice sharp. No, she said, shaking her head. Never. I swear, Tyler. It was only ever texts and a couple of phone calls. That's it. How am I supposed to believe that? I asked. You've lied to me about everything else. What's stopping you from lying about this? I'm not lying, she said, her voice desperate. If you want, I'll give you access to everything. My phone, my email, anything. I'll even let you track my location. Whatever it takes to prove I'm telling the truth. I didn't know if I could trust her or if I even wanted to try. The damage was already done, and every time I looked at her, all I could see were the messages, the photos, and the betrayal. I need time, I said finally, standing up. I can't just forgive you overnight, Emily. I don't even know if I can forgive you at all. She didn't say anything, just nodded through her tears as I walked out of the room. I went back to the guest room and closed the door, leaving her alone. I didn't know what the future held for us, but one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. The days following our conversation in the living room were some of the hardest I've ever faced. I thought confronting Emily and hearing the truth would give me some clarity, but if anything, it only made things more complicated. Every word she said replayed in my mind, her excuses, her apologies, and her desperation to fix things. I wanted to believe her, but the trust between us felt so shattered that I didn't know if it could ever be repaired. Emily gave me full access to her phone, email, and social media accounts like she promised. At first, I didn't want to look through them. It felt invasive, and honestly, I didn't know if I could handle finding more evidence of her betrayal. But curiosity and doubt got the better of me. I spent hours combing through her messages, emails, and browser history, looking for anything she might still be hiding. To my surprise, I didn't find much. Mark wasn't in her contacts anymore, and there were no new messages, no calls, nothing to indicate that she was still talking to him. She had blocked him on WhatsApp, deleted his number, and even unfollowed him on every platform. On the surface, it looked like she was being honest about cutting ties. But no matter how hard I looked, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was still more to the story. One night, I decided to push for more answers. Emily was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, when I walked in and sat across from her. She looked up, startled, like she wasn't sure if I wanted to talk or if I was about to start another fight. "Do you still think about him?" I asked bluntly. Her eyes widened, and she quickly shook her head. "No," she said. "Not like that. I only think about how much I regret what I did." "But you did think about him," I said, my voice sharp. "You shared things with him that you should have shared with me. You let him into your life, into our marriage. Do you even realize how much that hurts?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she nodded. "I do," she said softly. "I hate myself for it, Tyler. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't. All I can do is try to show you that I'm sorry." "Why did it take getting caught for you to end it?" I asked. "If you really regretted it, why didn't you stop on your own?" Emily hesitated, wiping her tears. "I don't know," she said. "I told myself it wasn't that serious, that it wasn't hurting anyone. But deep down, I knew it was wrong. I didn't want to let go of the attention." Her honesty was brutal, but it didn't bring me any comfort. "So what am I supposed to do with that?" I asked. "How am I supposed to believe you won't do it again the next time you feel invisible or lonely?" "I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that I won't," she said. "Therapy, counseling, anything. I'll be completely transparent with you, Tyler. I'll work on myself, and I'll work on us. Just, please don't give up on me." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her a chance to fix what she'd broken. But another part of me wondered if I'd ever be able to let go of the anger and betrayal. Could I really move past this, or was I just prolonging the inevitable? That night, I started looking into couples therapy. I figured if there was any chance of saving our marriage, we'd need professional help. Emily was fully on board when I brought it up. She even offered to find a therapist and book the sessions herself. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said, her voice full of conviction. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that things would never be the same. Therapy might help us rebuild, but it wouldn't erase what had happened. It wouldn't bring back the trust I'd lost. And it certainly wouldn't undo the months of lies and deceit. As I lay awake that night in the guest room, I realized I wasn't just questioning my marriage, I was questioning myself. Did I have the strength to forgive her? Did I even want to? Or was I holding on to something that was already gone? I didn't have the answers yet, but one thing was clear: the road ahead was going to be long and painful, and I wasn't sure if we'd make it to the other side. After a few days of searching, Emily found a couples therapist named Dr. Harper. She specialized in infidelity and trust issues, which seemed like exactly what we needed. Emily booked the first session, and I reluctantly agreed to go. I wasn't sure if therapy could fix what had been broken, but if there was even a small chance of saving our marriage, I figured it was worth trying. Walking into that therapy office for the first time felt surreal. Emily and I had always been the couple people admired, solid, supportive, and happy. Now, here we were, sitting on a couch with miles of distance between us, preparing to air out our deepest problems in front of a stranger. Dr. Harper started by asking us why we were there. Emily immediately broke down, saying how sorry she was for what she'd done and how much she wanted to repair the damage. "I know I hurt Tyler in ways I can't even fully understand," she said through tears. "I want to fix this. I'll do anything." Her words sounded sincere, but they didn't bring me any comfort. When Dr. Harper turned to me, I struggled to put my feelings into words. "I'm here because I don't want to make a decision I'll regret," I said finally. "But I don't know if I can forgive her, and I don't know if I even want to try." That set the tone for the session. Dr. Harper asked Emily to explain how the emotional affair started, and for the first time, I got the full story. She admitted that she'd been feeling neglected, especially over the past year as my work hours increased. "It felt like we were roommates more than husband and wife," she said. "And then I met Mark online. At first, it was just fun and light, but then it became more personal. He made me feel important, like I mattered." I clenched my fists as she spoke, trying to keep my anger in check. "So, I didn't make you feel important?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Emily shook her head quickly. "No, that's not what I mean. You do, Tyler. You always have. But I let myself get caught up in this fantasy. It wasn't real, but I let it feel real because it was easier than dealing with the distance between us." Dr. Harper stepped in before I could respond. "Tyler, how does it feel to hear Emily say this?" "Like a slap in the face," I said honestly. "I've been working long hours for us, to give our family a good life. And while I'm doing that, she's sneaking around and telling some random guy that I don't make her feel seen. How am I supposed to move past that? Emily looked devastated, but she didn't try to defend herself. Instead, she nodded, her eyes filled with tears. You're right, she said softly. I took the easy way out, and it was selfish. I should have talked to you instead of looking for validation somewhere else. By the end of the session, I felt emotionally drained. Dr. Harper gave us some exercises to work on at home, like writing letters to each other about our feelings and setting aside time to talk openly without judgment. She also suggested that Emily continue individual therapy to address her own issues, which she agreed to without hesitation. That night, Emily and I sat down together for the first time in weeks. It wasn't easy, but we started the letter-writing exercise Dr. Harper had assigned. I wrote about my pain, my anger, and how much her betrayal had shaken me. I told her that I missed the trust and connection we used to have, but I didn't know if I'd ever be able to feel that way again. Emily's letter was raw and emotional. She apologized again and again, but she also wrote about her fears, that she wasn't good enough, that she didn't deserve me, and that she was terrified of losing our family. I know I failed you, she wrote, but I love you, Tyler. I've always loved you, and I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. Reading her words made me feel a strange mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her the chance to prove she could change. But another part of me couldn't let go of the betrayal. Could I really move past this? Or was I just delaying the inevitable? Over the next few weeks, therapy became a regular part of our routine. We started to unpack the deeper issues in our relationship, the ways we both contributed to the emotional distance that led to the affair. It wasn't easy, and there were plenty of moments where I felt like walking away. But Emily kept showing up, doing the work, and proving that she was committed to fixing what she'd broken. Despite her efforts, I still couldn't shake the doubt in the back of my mind. Was she truly sorry, or was she just afraid of losing the life we'd built together? And even if she was sincere, could I ever trust her again? I didn't have the answers yet. All I knew was that the road ahead was going to be long and painful, and I wasn't sure if we'd make it to the other side. The weeks of therapy continued, and while I couldn't say things were better, they were at least moving. Emily was consistent in her efforts. She showed up to every session, opened up about her insecurities, and took full responsibility for her actions. She even started seeing Dr. Harper individually to work through her deeper issues. I wanted to give her credit for that, but the hurt and mistrust still lingered like a cloud over everything. One night after therapy, Emily suggested we try one of the exercises Dr. Harper had recommended, sitting down together and sharing one positive memory of our relationship. It felt trivial at first, like slapping a Band-Aid on a broken leg, but I agreed. At this point, I figured I had nothing to lose. Emily went first. She talked about the time we went on a spontaneous road trip a few years ago. We had no plan, no reservations, just the two of us, a playlist, in the open road, she said, smiling faintly. I felt so close to you on that trip, like nothing else in the world mattered. Her words caught me off guard. I hadn't thought about that trip in a long time, but as she spoke, the memories came flooding back. The bad diner food, the ridiculous playlist we'd argued over, the way we'd laughed so hard we cried. For a moment, I felt a flicker of what we used to have, and it hurt more than I expected. When it was my turn, I hesitated. I didn't know if I could summon a positive memory without the bitterness creeping in. But then I thought about our wedding day. I remember standing at the altar, I said slowly, and thinking I was the luckiest guy in the world. You looked so beautiful, and I couldn't believe someone like you chose me. Emily started crying, but this time, it wasn't the frantic, guilt-laden tears I'd seen so often. These were quiet, heavy tears that seemed to carry the weight of everything we'd lost. I miss that, she said softly. I miss us. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I missed us too, but I didn't know if what we did could ever come back. The affair had changed everything. Even in moments like this, where I saw glimpses of the woman I fell in love with, the shadow of her betrayal loomed large. That night, as I lay in the guest room, I realized something important. Even though I wasn't ready to forgive her, I wasn't ready to let go either. There was still a small part of me that wanted to believe we could rebuild, no matter how impossible it seemed. A few weeks later, during another therapy session, Dr. Harper brought up a topic I'd been avoiding: forgiveness. Tyler, what does forgiveness look like for you? She asked. I hesitated, unsure of how to answer. I don't know, I said finally. I'm not sure if I can forgive her. And even if I could, I don't know if I'd ever trust her again. That's understandable, Dr. Harper said. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened or excusing it. It's about choosing to move forward, whether that means rebuilding your relationship or letting it go. Her words stayed with me long after the session ended. That night, Emily and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, the silence between us thick. I could feel her watching me, but I didn't know what to say. Finally, she broke the silence. Tyler, she said softly, I know I've given you every reason to leave. And if that's what you decide, I'll understand. But I need you to know that I'm not the same person I was when I made those mistakes. I've been working on myself, and I'll keep working on myself, no matter what happens between us. Her honesty surprised me. For the first time, it didn't feel like she was saying what I wanted to hear. It felt real. I don't know what I'm going to do, I admitted. But I can see that you're trying. I just don't know if it's enough. Emily nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. Take all the time you need, she said. I just hope you'll see that I'm not giving up on us. As the days turned into weeks, I started to notice small changes in our relationship. We weren't the same, but we were starting to communicate better. Emily was more present, more attentive, and more vulnerable than she'd been in years. I still had doubts, plenty of them, but I also started to feel a faint glimmer of hope. One night, as we were sitting on the porch after the kids went to bed, Emily turned to me and said, "Thank you for staying. I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm grateful." I looked at her, and for the first time in months, I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd fallen in love with. "I'm still here," I said cautiously, "but we're not out of the woods yet." "I know," she said, "and I'm okay with that. As long as we're trying, that's all that matters to me." For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could find a way through it together. Several months have passed since Emily's affair came to light, and I feel like I'm finally at a point where I can reflect on everything that's happened. This journey has been one of the hardest things I've ever faced. There were moments when I wanted to throw in the towel, moments when I doubted everything, including myself. But here we are, and I think it's time to share how it all turned out. Therapy became a lifeline for us. The sessions weren't easy, far from it. There were times when I walked out feeling like we'd made no progress at all, like the wounds were too deep to ever heal. But Dr. Harper kept pushing us to communicate, to be vulnerable, and to confront the hard truths about our marriage. And slowly, things began to change. Emily continued to do the work. She was consistent in therapy, took full accountability for her actions, and made a genuine effort to rebuild my trust. She went above and beyond to be transparent, sharing every detail of her day and answering my questions, no matter how uncomfortable they made her. She even wrote me a letter apologizing for everything she'd done, pouring her heart out in a way that felt raw and unfiltered. For me, the hardest part was letting go of the anger. Every time I thought we were moving forward, something would trigger me, a memory, a phrase, or even just seeing her on her phone, and I'd spiral back into doubt and resentment. But I learned that holding on to that anger wasn't helping me heal. It was only keeping me stuck in the pain. One night, after a particularly emotional therapy session, Emily and I sat down together in the living room. "I know I've said this 100 times, she began, her voice trembling, "but I need you to hear it again. I'm so sorry for what I did to us. I'll never forgive myself for the pain I caused you, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Her words hit differently that night. Maybe it was the way she said them, or maybe it was the months of work we'd put into rebuilding. Whatever it was, something inside me shifted. "I believe you," I said quietly. "I believe you're sorry. And I think I'm ready to try to forgive you." Emily's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It meant choosing to move forward, to rebuild, and to see if we could create something new from the wreckage. It's been 6 months since that night, and while things still aren't perfect, they're better. Emily and I are closer than we've been in years. We've learned to communicate in ways we never did before, and we've started finding joy in the little things, date nights, family outings, even just sitting on the porch together after the kids go to bed. I won't lie and say I don't think about the affair anymore. There are still moments when doubt creeps in, when the memories resurface and threaten to pull me back into the pain. But those moments are fewer and farther between now. And when they do happen, Emily is there to reassure me, to remind me that she's all in, and to prove it with her actions. Choosing to stay wasn't easy, and there were times when I questioned if I was making the right decision. But looking back, I don't regret it. Emily and I are rebuilding something new, something stronger, and while the scars of what happened will always be there, they don't define us anymore. To anyone out there going through something similar, I want you to know this. Healing takes time. Whether you choose to stay or leave, there's no right or wrong answer, only what feels right for you. For me, staying felt like the hardest choice, but it also felt like the one worth fighting for. And so far, I'm glad I did. Thanks to everyone who followed my story and offered advice. It meant more than you know. Take care, Reddit, and remember, even in the darkest moments, there's always a chance for light.